Jake, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I like your overlay there.
Yeah, this is our 11th episode of the season. Today, we're going to be talking about choosing the right co founder or investor for your new business.
That is a
Jake,
great topic.
sounds like you had an exciting week. What's going on in your world?
So last week I went to Syracuse to the Upstate Capital event, and it was my first time pitching with kind of lights and cameras and microphones and all kinds of stuff like that. We were up there at it was in a radio station,
Okay.
but they had all kinds of cameras and the stage and a lot of lights shining in my eyes. I wasn't used to that. I struggled with that a little bit with the audience. But now you seem like you speak on stages. You've had some experience doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have. It can be unnerving if you're not used to it. I think the most unnerving in all was doing a TEDx talk. It's a lot of because there's no mic or there's lots of lights and a microphone. There's no notes or presentation. It's just standing and talking for 9 minutes. It's a challenge. So you got to do your pitch. Tell us about that.
I got to do the 3 minute pitch. So I was able to meet a ton of really amazing founders, and I got to meet some founders who've been down the circuit. They've already raised $1 million, or one gentleman had just closed his second $2 million round, and so it's exciting to meet people like that. It's really interesting to hear them talk about their investors more like young kids talk about like baseball cards, and
Yes.
like such and such, like this guy came on, and then because he knew these people that opened these doors, and then we were able to bring in so and so, and now like he's on the board. And it's like they're like collecting action figures to
Huh.
bring into their investor sway. So I mean, that was fascinating to learn from people with more experience than myself. Met a ton of great founders. There were a few investors in the audience. There weren't as many investors in the audience as I would have liked, and the investors that were there were kind of swarmed and quite busy, and get like 2,000 applications in a week with people looking for finance from them. So that was a little daunting, but overall it was a great experience, and we're back on the circuit to raise money. My
All right.
development team, Kyle, they're all part time and working for Sweat Equity. They're an amazing group of people that are highly skilled, and we're building something really cool. But that said, we'll make a ton of progress one week, and then like someone will be away, and we'll have some knot hole that like relates to them, and like we've got to wait for them to get internet access or get back to us or get back from their vacation, and like everything just sits around for like a week before we can restart it. And the ebbs and flows of my development at the moment are driving me up the wall.
Imagine.
But we're close to doing
So
some pretty cool things. I think within 3-4 weeks, we've got all these separate things that we built, right? We've got all
yeah.
these separate little things that people can use here and there. That's great, but now we're like trying to get them connected, and that is difficult. But I think within 3-4 weeks, we'll have some of this stuff connected, and that could be pretty cool.
All right. Well, it's good to see
That
some
could
progress.
that could start to get like really really fun and really interesting. And I think some of that stuff will, as well as what we're going to need to get those investors, getting those, instead of asking questions like actually writing a check. I need to get someone to write a check. Do you want to invest, by the way?
Do I?
Yeah. Do you have
Well,
can you
let me tell
stroke a
you.
$20,000 check or 10?
I will tell you. Well, let me ask you this first. I'm going to turn it right back on you. Like, I firmly believe that if you're looking for an investor, you should be looking for people that have more than just a check, right? That they're bringing something more to the table than just money. Um,
Kyle,
and so,
you bring way more to the table than just money, Kyle.
well, I appreciate that. I'm flattered. I'm just wondering when you're looking for investors, what are they bringing to the table ideally for you more than just money?
Um, that's a great question. So, in the first instance, for the smaller checks, I would be fine for someone to invest and be more passive, and I could kind of do an extended family and friends round. Um, but it would be great to find an investor, one that like really knows fintech. Two, it would be great to meet an investor who really knows the equipment space. At
Yeah.
one point, we had a potential investor who worked with a really big name rental company, and so he knew equipment very well from being in a multi-billion-dollar equipment rental space.
Yeah.
Um, and so someone with existing partners or deep knowledge would be great. I would really prefer to just find someone who like really gets fintech and like really gets what our mission is, um, and just understands what we're trying to do and can help us on the mission.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is somebody with industry or domain experience that can be the smart money. I mean, anybody can bring dumb money to the table, right? But it sounds like that you really appreciate the smart money, people that know what they're doing in the space that you're operating in, appreciate what you're doing, and can actually be involved, maybe in a board level or something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're dead on all that stuff, but at the moment, because of my development frustrations, having someone that like understands technically, like they've worked on automated online applications before, and they have some knowledge about how to make that, just be really frictionless.
Yeah.
We really want to build a Ferrari, and like finding someone who's been a mechanic of a Ferrari before, and knows how to spin a wrench to make things go. Man, that would just go a million miles.
So you're talking
That'd be
about
great.
almost like a technical co-founder, which is distinct from an investor potentially, right? You wouldn't necessarily expect an investor to be involved day to day in the operations or development, but what about technical co-founders? Is that something else that you're looking for that's distinct from that?
I have a lot of great technical co-founders, but more someone who could be an advisor that like gets what we're trying to build and could kind of say like these are the people you need, or like hey meet like these people have built something like that for me before. So
Yeah,
someone that is in that technical space and has an understanding, but could be more of an advisor, and could really just help us speed things along. Yeah, that'd be
yeah,
great. Or someone that knows the industry, knows equipment finance, and um, can help us get things moving. But it's
yeah,
going to be an interesting journey. I think having met some of these founders, there's a long road from getting people to say they want to invest to actually getting those checks written and the money in the bank. There's a really long due diligence period. Apparently, you really have to hound people and like follow up with them constantly, and it takes like 6 months. So we're still a good 6-7 months away from being able to raise.
yeah. That makes sense. Are you finding anybody at all in the investor pool that has domain experience?
I have not, and so there's a little bit of a mixed message out there, right? Like there's like this tone that like, hey, there's a ton of dry powder out there. Like there's a ton of money out there for fintech, and it should be easy to find. But I haven't really met those people. When I do
Yeah,
meet people, they've got like very specific interests. They're like, oh, we like people a little closer to Series A, or we like people that have like a certain amount of revenue. Finding that kind of early stage fintech person has not been easy for me. But supposedly they're out there.
yeah. So
We're on
you're
the hunt
you're
for them
almost
for
looking
sure.
for like angels, like a seed round,
We
and
are
there's
we are an angel. We are an angel seed round.
yeah, okay. But
Are
you
you an
keep running
angel?
into people who wanna do A round stuff.
I spoke well. So I spoke to someone last week, and before I got on the phone with them, they're like, "Yeah, we like seed stage companies." But through the course of the conversation, they like seed but close to A, and we were a little
Yeah,
too early stage for them. So um, I also think that that's just another way to say we like what you're doing, but we're not ready to invest yet. There's a lot of
yeah,
people. I'm building up this like audience, Kyle, of people that are standing on the sidelines.
mhm,
Like they're kind of like there's this building crowd of people waiting on the sidelines, and I kind of need like that lead investor. When I get the lead
yes,
investor, I think everyone else will kind of be like, "Oh, okay, now we're ready."
yes,
Um, and so we're trying to. It's a good thing, but I do need that lead investor. I need a lead investor who believes in what we're doing and is willing to take the chance.
it seems like from, just as a casual observer of what's going on is if you had somebody with the right domain experience that really grokked what you're doing and your vision, and you get that person to just invest a small amount of money, be the lead, well, not small, but, but large enough to be significant, maybe you'd get some other seed investors that would follow along.
I think that's where we're at now. I think we are close. Some days it feels like we're really close, and other days it just feels like we're further away. There's just this weird ebb and flow, but um, I think we are close, and I think we need that lead investor. And I think if we get the lead investor, we'll be good from there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Man, having $500,000 to like speed our development up. It's all there, like the blueprint's there, the fit and finish in the industry is there. I've spoken to people who've said they want to use our product. There's excitement in what we're doing. I see a competitor out there in what we're doing that I feel like we could be much better than. So all the elements are kind of there, but we got to find that person.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, I had a really kind of on a related topic, really interesting discussion this past weekend with somebody I met on a local networking group, a Slack group of all things. And we're, you know, both involved in franchising in a way. And we just met for lunch Saturday and talked a little bit. And I had a lot of light bulb moments from that conversation. It was really cool. This was a guy who had actually quit his tech job to focus 100% on this new startup idea that he had. And it was an idea that I'd been kind of mulling in my mind for years and actually had pretty well-formed thoughts on it. And you know, he was bringing to the table some things that I kept stumbling on, the things that I'd bump up against and just sort of give up, you know, and just keep doing what I'm doing. And that specifically was how to market the business and having the right tech team to build an MVP.
And so is this for your current company or a side project that you're considering?
Side project. It's a startup. It's a tech
Yeah.
startup.
Can you talk about it today, or are you?
I can't, but I can talk about this in the context of, you know, like finding the right co-founder and investor. And what I
I'm intrigued.
realized
I'm
is
intrigued,
that,
Kyle.
what's that?
I'm intrigued.
I am too.
Your mysteriousness is making me. I want to know
Well,
more.
I don't want to call out somebody that may not want the attention at this very moment, but you know, it's just preliminary stages. But here's what I found is that I had thought of an idea like this, and it was a common problem in the franchise development industry. And this other person who started this company um, actually moved forward with it and had as part of like an informal advisory board, somebody who's really good at SEO and marketing, which is really needed for the solution. And also somebody who is good at, you know, developing an MVP, you know, based as a minimum viable product based on his design ideas. And so here I am
Is this
seeing
gonna
somebody who's
is this gonna
putting a
live in a
great job in
similar
doing this.
is this gonna live in a similar space to what you're in now, or is this a completely new kind of space?
They're related, but very different from each other. Yeah. Um, and it's, yeah, it is in franchising, but it's really a franchising development solution, because there's some specific problems in the space that we've been addressing or dealing with for quite some time, and I think this has the potential to solve some very serious business development problems,
Sounds
um,
awesome.
and be lucrative at the same time. To me, it's like, you know, there was things that we were bringing to the table, right? Like he was bringing the technical know-how, he had SEO know-how. There was a lot of that was going on, right? And recognizing a problem. And then I was bringing to the table very specific, like, here's how we get to revenue, and here's how we can count the revenue, and here's how you can grow that revenue fast, right? And yeah, it's got me excited enough that, you know, I want to pitch in and help develop the business plan and go chase after investors, you know, if this guy wants to work together. Um, and so it got me thinking about finding the right co-founder. Is, you know, you need somebody who's focused on that business development piece. You need somebody who's focused on the technical piece, sales and operations, basically the two main organs of business. And then you need people who are bringing domain experience together that can go ultimately put all that together, build a great team, and be able to raise money. And so this idea has been turning in my head ever since, you know, for the past 4 days now.
So I love this space, and I think there's a massive opportunity right now for automation. I'm really intrigued with, beyond what I'm doing in the fintech space, I'm really intrigued with invoicing, invoicing for
Mhm.
small businesses. There's a lot of small businesses that come by your house to fix the pipe, and then they lead you like a little written note.
Yeah.
But I digress. On the co-founder topic, this is one of the things that really drew me in at Reddit. Right, Reddit co-founder. There's also a platform called StartHawk, and it's a co-founder matching platform.
Yeah.
And so if you go to Reddit co-founder, there's a ton of people. There's a very specific format that they're a little bit pedantic about, but that is a place that you can pitch for and say like, hey, I'm a technical person, but I need someone great at marketing, or I need someone who's great at sales, or vice versa. I
Yes.
found a product. I think I've got a product market fit, but I need a technical co-founder. And so Reddit is actually a great place to meet people like that. Some of my best partners, I didn't meet them on Reddit co-founder, but some of my best partners I've met on Reddit.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that that's a great idea, and I think that um, using a platform like that is a good way to facilitate it. I also believe that if you treat that avenue the same as maybe say you were using Bumble to find a spouse, um, I think that that's a healthy way to approach it because ultimately, if you're going to have a co-founder, you should treat it with all the seriousness that you would a marriage, right? But there's always you gotta start at step 1, and Bumble's a valid way or whatever. I'm not calling out or, in favor of one or the other, just, an online dating service, let's just call it that. And a co-founder match is basically that. But, the ultimate goal is to have a partnership that's so tight that you would consider it with the same serious as you would a marriage.
Co-founders was really one of those double-edged swords of the startup world, right? Like when companies turn into billion-dollar unicorns, it is because some people came together and magic happened, right? Their skills complemented each other. They found the right idea. But the stories I see most often posted on Reddit are about people whose partnerships are breaking down.
Yes.
And people come on to Reddit to post about, their co-founder wants to quit. Or sometimes I see people post about how they want to quit and they don't want to mess over the company too much, but like they're ready to leave. Um,
Yeah.
And so I think with co-founders, it's important to put yourself out there. It's important not to be too precious about your idea because you need to know that you are a specialist with an understanding of a space that no one else can compete with. Because to really find good people and co-founders, you've got to put yourself out there and you've got to put your idea out there to do that, to find people
Yeah.
that are interested in it. But you've also got to proceed cautiously. Like you should not just jump in and give someone 50% of your business.
Yeah. Just like a marriage. I
You've
mean,
got
think
to,
about it, when you
you've got to
got
date.
people that are yeah. Yeah, when you're talking about dating, I mean, you know, you gotta have your criteria lined up, right? You need to know which BS you're gonna put up with and which you won't. And that's really, I think, a lot of what dating or even co-founding is about is what's that line in the sand, you know? Can you deal with it if they're snoring, if there's all these other benefits, right? Or you're just not gonna deal with that, right? Uh, and there are just some things you need to think about in the same way with co-founders is and like just like in a marriage, having a prenup, having that divorce clause, that partnership agreement, because the worst thing that could happen is you get this business spun up and then the interests of the co-founders diverge and one of them or wants out and then they start fighting over, how you're going to do that. I mean, I think it's healthy to assume that all co-founders are eventually going to have diverging interests over time, right? Think of like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? Great co-founders, great company, diverging interests over time.
Hate each other.
Yeah. Yes.
Steve Wozniak is actually a fascinating example because I saw him. He was a kind of like closed out in an event that I attended, and
Mhm.
he has a very interesting way to speak about Steve Jobs, and a lot of people see Steve Jobs as like the innovator, and in my opinion, he really was. He was the guy that figured out what the problem was and how do we make products that like people are really attracted to, and we're in, like he somehow added value that added the intuitiveness. But if you hear Steve Wozniak speak, he will let you know that Steve Jobs never invented anything.
Yeah.
He
He's an excellent.
Wozniak was the guy who built everything. Like Steve would have these ideas, they would talk about things, but Woz was always the one that went out and built these things that became
So
multi-billion-dollar products.
sales and operations, right? Those were those guys, right? Steve Jobs knew how to solve a market problem, right? He had a vision for that, and Woz was able to actually build the thing that matched that vision.
Well, so Steve was like an incredible salesperson, and
Hmm.
he seems one of his skills, for better or for worse, seemed that he was really able to get the most out of like developers. Like you
Yeah.
just hear these horror stories about developers who had to like, present to him and get
Hmm.
their ideas shut down. Um, and so
Yeah.
he had some incredible ability to like really get the most out of people.
I think fear was more powerful than love for him.
Yeah.
So, but I was using that as an example. It's like when you're thinking about getting a co-founder or a partner, you do not just go pick up whoever, you know. I think that, having Reddit or something like that is a really great way to meet people, but that shouldn't lower your bar or change your
Yeah.
criteria. Because, and you're talking a moment ago about that magic that happens.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that happens when you find the mate of your dreams, right? And everything just sort of lines up and everything's cool. And nothing's perfect, right? But there's a lot of ways when you can make things awesome where it's greater than the sum of the parts, right? And that's what you're looking for. And that's hard to find.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of co-founders in the franchise space?
No,
No.
not at all.
People that like two
Right?
best friends don't team up, and one's great at marketing and one's great at making sandwiches, and they
I
start a
am
Subway
patently
chain.
against it. Yeah.
Really? Why does it
Yeah.
always? Did you deal with it years ago and it was always a nightmare?
I've had actually a partnership with a family member that worked out pretty well, but I haven't seen any partnerships that amongst my client base that have worked out well.
Yeah.
And there's always, somebody that either wants to be the money guy or wants to be the ops guy with no money, you know, and they're looking for their other half, and it just doesn't work.
But so that's not common in that kind of franchise space, but in this kind of more startup space, the founders is a more important thing. And so you think you found someone that could be a good co-founder, or are you guys more just idea generating?
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, like I said, this is kind of a new shiny object for me, so I don't know. But there's definitely potential.
So of the founders that were at the Upstate Capital of Pitching event last week, there were some students that came and pitched some ideas. I've seen a number of companies trying to innovate in kind of the landscaping space,
Oh,
and
really?
I actually think that's a great idea. Um,
How
very
so?
antiquated, very antiquated. A lot of the SME, around where I am in Greater New York, like you can't go outside without seeing a couple landscaping trucks go by. But if you actually
Sure.
get on Google and try to find some, like I can't actually find them. All the ones I ended up calling when I Googled it like 2 years ago or 3 years ago only wanted to do actually like masonry and walls and like concrete, but
Yeah.
actually trying to find someone who would cut your lawn, it wouldn't really work. And a lot of these small companies are the ones that leave you a written invoice on your steps, right? And so there's a
Yes.
massive opportunity there to come in and innovate on kind of a marketing and kind of like everyone wants to be that Uber experience, and there's an opportunity
Sure.
there to innovate how people get their lawn done and how they pay for it and how
Yeah.
they get
Yeah.
invoiced, um, and some kind of quality control. And if you could get that right, you could I think you could scale something there.
Yeah.
So someone at my
Actually,
go on.
I'm seeing some innovation in that space, but in the commercial market, in the franchising world, where it's about marketing expertise, it's about quality and consistency, but rather than doing the residential market, they're focused on commercial.
Yeah, but I think theoretically you could get in there and scale. There's not that many landscapers that really have a mind to scale. There's a few out there.
That's right.
But if you wanted to scale a brand name nationally, I think there's some potential there. I see
Yes.
potential for that kind of innovation in the light construction space.
Yes.
And I'm
And
trying to think of some of the pitches that really stood out to me at the event. There was a really cool one that had to do with music,
mm,
and kind of like having, you know how like Apple Mac comes with like a GarageBand.
yes.
It was almost like a GarageBand, but one you could log into and easily share with other people. So that
Okay.
if you were mixing music, someone else could like contribute music into one space like
Yeah.
instantly,
Like a
rather than
virtual
like
studio.
instead of emailing stuff back and forth. So you could almost do like live mixing with someone in a
Yeah.
virtual studio. So I thought that was a cool idea. One guy had a great idea about how to use recycled glass to mix with concrete to kind of help with recycling and lower the costs, and it like reduced carbon to some like nth degree, which was really
Interesting.
interesting.
Well,
Um,
those things that you talked about, the landscaping and the light construction, perfect for franchising. You
yeah,
want to scale it nationally. We see that market as highly fragmented, high demand for owners. I'm doing a lot of stuff in the light construction space and the
on
home
the
consumer
franchise side,
service. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
what are some of the
Yeah. In
concepts
fact,
that are up there?
I just closed a deal last week on Friday, in the light construction space, light remodeling, and I love this. It's a
There's
really innovative.
a light remodeling franchise.
Yeah, but it's very specific and it's very cool. Is that the target audience is actually real estate agents. That's how you build your business. And this is only doing light remodeling in order to facilitate the sale of a home. And we're talking
Oh,
about people that might be boomers selling their home, downsizing after a while. Well, who's going to buy that house? Probably a millennial. And the tastes are quite divergent, right? But if you can touch up that house and you don't have like, like whatever the home remodeling equivalent of Bridezilla is, the seller doesn't care. The seller just wants out. And so they don't have to live with it. And the agent wants something that's done to that house that will grease the skids for sale and make it look good to a more contemporary buyer, right? And so that's what that is, and it's an amazing business, and they're just growing by leaps and bounds right now. And in fact, like all of Central Texas, I just sold the last territory between Austin and San Antonio on Friday. Big,
hmm.
cool business. Yeah.
I
So that
might have to
stuff
go
is
out.
there, man, and it's so fragmented, and like you said, there's all these people that drop off paper invoices on the door, and these are folks that are technicians, not marketers, and so franchising is a really great way to apply systems, processes, technology, and marketing,
Consistency,
most importantly,
quality control,
at scale. Yes, consistency, quality control. And
scheduling.
that's already played out in the fast food space. I mean, if it was 1960, we'd be having a different conversation. But the where that light construction, that home consumer service stuff is now is like where fast food was in the early 60s, just poised for growth and consolidation, and yeah, that's happening right now. Great space to be in.
I think there's a lot of software products that are coming available now that is going to help that kind of automation. Having a technical connection between customers and those kind of companies, and being
Yep.
able to make it scalable. I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of from here forward. I don't.
Yep.
This relates a little less, but like there's more and more of those kind of robot pizza places.
Mm,
I think
mm,
you see a lot more of those, and possibly like robot delivery.
okay.
Slightly, the robotic space is slightly different from some of the animate automations that we're talking to, but I think there's technologies that are starting to come available that will start to affect these spaces.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun things going on. Well, I think we're just about at the end of our time. Got any parting thoughts before we break?
No, but I would like to say to our audience, thank you very much for joining us today. We will be back next week at the same time, looking to talk about business and entrepreneurship. We are also streaming over to LinkedIn.
Yep,
And
and
it's a great
YouTube.
conversation today about founders, how to find co-founders, how to approach relationships with
Absolutely.
founders. And that may be
Yeah.
that's a good topic.
Good stuff, Jake. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and thank everyone out there for your attention. And we'll look forward to talking with you next week. Until then, take care.